And this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. On this week's episode of Jazz Update, it's all about Johnny Hodges. Johnny Hodges was the lead saxophonist for Duke Ellingtons Orchestra. His ability to craft beautiful soul-stirring melodies and solos made him one of the most significant jazz saxophonists of his time. He started out learning how to play piano and drums and then switched to the alto saxophone in his teens. He started touring in New York, then in 1928 he joined Duke Ellington's ensemble. From the get-go, he became a vital member of Duke Ellington's Orchestra, also composing several songs for the group. In 1951, Hodges left the Ellington Orchestra and began performing alongside his own groups, featuring former Ellington bandmates Lawrence Brown and Sonny Greer. They recorded on Morgan and Verve Records for the next decade. Some of their best albums included Ellingtonia 56, Johnny Hodges with Billy Strayhorn and the orchestra, and more. So that was some insight into the life and times and best hits of Johnny Hodges. More details coming up. Also coming up, some trending festival and album news. Stay tuned to the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva to find out more. We'll be right back after some music. And this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. On this week's episode, Johnny Hodges, his life and times and best hits. During this hour, we are going to be talking about his biography. Johnny Hodges was a leading alto saxophonist from the early days of jazz, especially known for his work playing alongside Duke Ellington. Along with players like Benny Carter, Hodges is considered one of the greatest saxophone players of his day and age. He started out in New York City, playing alongside musicians like Lloyd Scott, Lucky Roberts and Chick Webb. When Ellington started his band in 1928, Hodges joined in and became their lead saxophonist. Hodges was born in Cambridge, Massachusetts on July 25, 1907. His family were also musicians, his mother was a pianist, and Hodges soon took to the music scene himself. He started out playing the drums and piano. He was mostly self-taught. He started playing piano at dancers in private homes. Then in his teens, he took up soprano saxophone playing. In 1928, Hodges joined Duke Ellington's orchestra. He went on to feature in several of their notable performances, for instance, their 1938 Carnegie Hall concert. Hodges' style was characterized by a smooth, warm tone and a specialization on blues and ballads. His playing won him wide acclaim from musicians from all genres and styles. Benny Goodman once said of him that he was one of the greatest alto saxophone players he had ever heard. John Coltrane once famously said Hodges' playing style inspired his own style on the saxophone. Some of Hodges' notable performances on sax alongside the Duke Ellington Orchestra included songs like Magdalena Hayes, Prelude to a Kiss, The Star-Crossed Lovers, Passion Flower, and more. In 1951, he left the Ellington Orchestra to form his own group. The group featured some of his former bandmates in Ellington's orchestra like Lawrence Brown, Sonny Greer, and John Coltrane. One of their hit albums was called Castle Rock, and the title track from that album went on to become a hit single. Another notable album was a tribute album to his days with Duke Ellington called Memories of Ellington. The album was reissued on Verve Records under the name Inner Mellow Tone. Over the next decade, Hodges recorded for Norgren and Verve Records. Some of his best albums from that time included Ellingtonia 56, Johnny Hodges with Billy Strayhorn and the orchestra, and The Big Sound. In the late 60s, Johnny Hodges returned to Ellington's orchestra. One of their notable performances from their latter days was at the Newport Jazz Festival in 1956. Johnny Hodges died on May 11, 1970. His saxophone style went on to inspire generations of jazz musicians after him. This is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. On this week's episode, Johnny Hodges, his life and times and best hits. Now it's time for some trending festival news. The Germantown Jazz Festival is making its debut from April 25th to 27th. The festival is set to bring a vast array of music, art and cultural celebrations to the city of Philadelphia. The festival is all about celebrating the rich musical legacy of Germantown in the heart of Philadelphia. The opening night, April 25th, features the Alfie Polly Trio, the Jim Holton Trio, the Mike Boone Group, and more. Day 2 of the concert sparks off with renowned saxophonist and composer Bobby Watson taking the stage. On the third day, it's an all-star ensemble featuring the likes of Eddie Henderson, George Cable, Cecil McBee, and others. Ahead of the festival, there's also a fundraiser set to take place on March 26th, featuring Austin Wagner and company, also a lot of food festivities and a raffle draw. For more information, please visit GermantownJazzFestival.com. So that was some trending festival news on the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. We are going for a short break. We'll be right back after that. When we come back, we're going to be talking about some of Johnny Hodges' best songs of all time. And this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. On this week's episode, Johnny Hodges, his life and times and best hits. During this hour, we're going to be talking about some of his best songs of all time. Here's a quick recap of what's coming up. The first song is called What Am I Got Here? This song was composed about the time Hodges left Ellington's band to start his own group. It was later released on Columbia Records in 1956. This song brings out the best of Hodges' instrumentals and some nostalgic lyrics. The next song is called Madam Butterfly. The song is a very complicated tune. It was co-written by Hodges and fellow clarinetist Jimmy Hamilton. A very swinging tune. One highlight of this song is Coltrane on saxophone. Another song called An Ordinary Thing, this song was written by one of Ellington's trumpeters, Cat Anderson. Hodges is on saxophone on the main phrases of this song. He's joined by other wind instrumentalists like Paul Gonsalves and Harry Carney. So overall, this song is a study in the various ways different instruments can mix together in jazz. And a song called Castle Rock. So in 1951, Johnny Hodges left Duke Ellington's orchestra and started his own group. One of his first albums recorded after leaving the orchestra was the album Castle Rock. The title track from that album went on to become a hit single. It's a very swinging bouncy tune with Al Sears and Johnny Hodges adding some dynamic saxophone melodies to the track. So that was some insight into what's coming up during this hour, and this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. On this week's episode, Johnny Hodges, his life and times and best hits. During this hour, we're going to be talking about some of his best songs of all time. The first one's called What Am I Got Here? This song was composed about the time Hodges left Ellington's band to start his own group during the years 1951 to 55. It was later released on Columbia Records in 1956. The song was composed by Hodges' wife, Edith Kew. She had famously composed the classic Blues Jam for Ellington's orchestra, as well as some other blues songs. This song brings out the best of Hodges' instrumentals and some nostalgic lyrics. The original trumpet melody was by Emmett Mary, and there was Lawrence Brown on trombone. The song is one of remorse. The singer is reminiscing about how he caused somebody disappointment and he's feeling regretful. A song about the importance of forgiveness for past mistakes in the course of a romance. How everybody makes mistakes, but forgiveness is the way to amend the past. Another song called Madame Butterfly. One highlight of Hodges' career was the number of world-class musicians that he performed alongside. For instance, on this tune, we have John Coltrane on tenor saxophone. The song is a very complicated tune. It was co-written by Hodges and fellow clarinetist Jimmy Hamilton. One thing that makes this track effective from a technical viewpoint is the clever use of dynamics and syncopated rhythms, that is, superimposing notes to make slower rhythms more catchy and vice versa. The result is a very swinging tune. The highlight is on the cinematic saxophone, trumpet and trombone playing of Coltrane and Hamilton. Short Baker was on drums, making the song sound totally out of this world. The performance is anchored by Louis Bellson on drums. Another song called An Ordinary Thing. By this time, Hodges had switched to Verve Records. He'd also rejoined Ellington's band. Ellington was at this time getting widespread fame, mainly because of an iconic appearance at the 1956 Newport Jazz Festival, which showcased his unique style in a new light and gained him massive popularity. A concert performance of that event was later released under the album Ellington at Newport. So it was the perfect time for Hodges to have rejoined Ellington's group. This song, No Ordinary Thing, was written by one of Ellington's trumpeters, Cat Anderson. There were 4 trumpeters in his group. The others were Willie Cook, Clark Terry and Short Baker. Hodges is on saxophone on the main phrases of this song. He's joined by other wind instrumentalists like Paul Gonsalves and Harry Carney. Together they create an amazing sound that contrasts beautifully with the orchestral music in the backdrop. So overall, this song is a study in the various ways different instrumentals can mix together in jazz. And a song called Castle Rock. So in 1951, Johnny Hodges left Duke Ellington's orchestra, with whom he'd been performing alongside since 1928. He returned to the band in 1955, but in the interim, he led several groups of his own, often alongside fellow bandmates of the Ellington Orchestra. One of his first albums recorded after leaving Ellington's orchestra was the album Castle Rock. The title track from that album went on to become a hit single. Collaborating with him on this track are 2 of his former bandmates alongside Ellington's orchestra, Lawrence Brown on trombone and drummer Sonny Greer. Lawrence has a beautiful distinctive sound to his playing, very upbeat and swinging. So the title track, Castle Rock, was written by Al Sears. It went on to become a popular hit, notably performed by Frank Sinatra in later years. It's a very swinging bouncy tune with Al Sears and Johnny Hodges adding some dynamic saxophone melodies to the song. So that was some insight into some of Johnny Hodges' best songs of all time, and this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashanti Silva. On this week's episode, Johnny Hodges, his life and times and best hits. Now some trending music news. Donald Vega is a Grammy-nominated pianist and composer, and he's out with a new single called 2 Words, Bud Powell. The track was composed for his 2023 album As I Travel, but it wasn't released until now. The album went on to win him a Grammy nomination for Best Latin Jazz Album. This song's a mid-tempo song and was inspired by Bud Powell, one of Donald's biggest idols. The song reflects his deep admiration for the style of Bud Powell and his artistry. Collaborating with him on the track are John Patitucci on bass and Louis Nash on drums. The song's available for purchase on bandcamp.com and will be available on all streaming platforms on March 28th. Donald Vega started touring and performing at just 14 when he was introduced to jazz by Billy Higgins and John Clayton. Today, he is the pianist for the legendary Ron Carter Trio and has toured nationally and internationally. For more information, please visit www.donaldvega.com. So that was some trending music news on the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashani Silva. We're going for a short break. We'll be right back after that. When we come back, we're going to be talking about more of Johnny Hodges' best songs of all time. Stay tuned.